to order. If I could get everyone to rise for a moment of silence and the pledge. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mr. Safety is not here for the buildings and grounds and safety, so we are going to move on into the policy. And myself and Ms. Hale are on the policy committee. Ms. Stull is not here yet. I think she may be on her way. So we do have enough to continue with the policy committee meeting. I'm sorry.
Sherry?
Sherry's, are you on policy?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Not Anita.
Not Anita, I meant Miss.
You were looking right at me. So
Yes,
that's okay.
I was. So
I knew you meant me.
I am so sorry about that. Yes, Miss Sherry and I, and we are here, and we will move on with the policy committee. I do apologize for that. Okay, we had several policies that were handed down, and we have actually decided through TSBA's okay, we're only doing part of them this month, and part will go on next month because there was 23 handed down. So we are doing, I think there's 11 that we are doing today, I think. And so we're going to start out with policy 1.200. This is method of election of officers. I had requested this one be put on the meeting because the last election we ended up with no chairman and no vice chair, and as it turns out, we will also be in that same predicament this time. So I just made some recommendations of how to make it more clear for us to be able to move forward in the first week of September so that we can go ahead and elect our officers. So if anyone has any questions.
So I looked that up in the Roberts Rules of Order, and it says that we nominate temporary officers?
We can.
You can, but there's not a reason to do that. I mean, they leave office at the end of August. We elect officers normally at the first September meeting. So if we do a special call at the very first part of September, then we go ahead and have because we can't run without an executive committee.
Right. So what in this changes?
Well, for one, this will, where the blue is on there, it says, in the event vacancies occur in both chairman and vice chairman positions, which would leave no executive committee, a special called meeting will be called the first week of September to elect officers.
So it said previously, that we would go ahead and elect them at the very first board meeting, which is, I went out and checked all the other districts, and theirs read the same way. Theirs was just our old template, basically, minus nobody had parliamentarian election on there. Some of them had the legislative liaison, and some did not. Some just had chairman and vice chairman. I know where you're coming from.
And we had, after last year's problem, we had actually taken this policy and added and I don't have that one with me, but we had added some wording on there that made it possible to elect. But this is the problem. If we go from the end of August, or say September 1st, until the first meeting in September, and we don't have an executive committee, and then something happens that needs an emergency approval or whatever, the director cannot do that without having a board chair. So therefore, because there will not be an executive committee. And so that's why it is important to go ahead at the 1st of September. It's very rare, and especially it happening at the, two times in a row.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? What if you have September, October, what if in November you don't have a chairman and a vice chairman?
Then it would, we would have to do a new election.
Yeah, because what you're saying here, you're gonna hold off until the first week of September.
That's our.
After the
No,
election.
that would be, with the ones that were elected,
Yeah.
they take office September 1st.
Okay,
So that leaves us without a board chair and without a
Right.
vice chair. So that's why we would do a special call the first week of September in order to elect those.
okay.
So that then we have the executive committee.
Rather than changing the policy itself to read differently, I think I'd lean more towards just electing a pro tem in place, maybe at the end of our August meeting, that would be in place until the September meeting, and then we can just go ahead, since it's not a usual sort of thing to have this happen, to change policy to accommodate that.
Earl, I'm gonna ask you for your advice on this. And we did talk to Ben Perez when this happened the last time, and he recommended changing the policy. So,
I mean, look, the board has an interest in having a chair in place. Now, whether that's a pro tem chair or whether that's a permanent chair that's elected at a different time, then, I mean, I don't know that there's really a preference necessarily for that, as long as you get somebody in place. Because that was the difficulty, at least that this board experienced last, is just not having either a chair or a vice chair who was able to fill in for the chair when there wasn't a chair. So, there just needs to be some way that the board can have some stability in that way.
and I don't understand why we would need a pro tem for 1 month. And why not fix it and just fix it? And go ahead and do
understand
the
that.
election. So, and it doesn't go against any of the TCA code, it doesn't go against anything to reword this to this wording. So that's my thing is, I want this board to run smoothly. And if we go into this again, and it doesn't always run smoothly. And so I'm trying to eliminate having, okay, let's get somebody temporary for a month. And why do that when we can go ahead and elect officers?
I get where you're coming from. I just think to change policy that's overriding policy that's in place consistently for, this situation, which may not occur again for who knows how many elections, that just to have the pro tem in place for that month in case something does come up, like you mentioned, where we'd have to have the executive committee in place to handle something. And then give the new board members time to get elected, get on board, get a couple weeks under their belt before they have to come in and elect officers.
I like that too. So basically what you're saying is this though, Ms. Debbie, is that the TLN representative would be that pro tem person.
No,
So the TLN would not be the acting person?
no, the TLN, the parliamentarian actually, according to what I understand, if the chairman is not available and the vice chairman is not available, the parliamentarian fills in.
And I read in several places that the secretary starts the meeting and then
Yes, I
it's
read that.
determined that who's going to run the meeting from there. Yeah.
Yeah, you have your Robert Rules of Order, Mr. King?
I do,
That's what I got too,
yeah.
just trying to find the information. So what do you have?
What you just said,
Okay.
But I just said that the secretary would start the meeting and then would determine who would run it.
correct.
The secretary would start it, but from my understanding, it was usually the secretary chose the parliamentarian in past, because this hasn't happened here, and in reading past meetings and minutes from other boards. It was
Which were in
usually the
error.
parliamentarian that ended up filling in,
Yeah.
so.
Says if neither are present, the secretary calls the meeting to order, elects the chairman pro tem for that meeting only.
You heard this, Miss Diane, so that would be,
So they're trying to get this thing up and running.
oh.
It's okay, I've got it in print.
If I'm hearing you though, the bigger issue as opposed to running a meeting, is there not being an executive committee in place?
Yes,
Is
that's
that-
my concern. That's my concern.
If the need arises, we could call a meeting for that purpose. Otherwise, we wouldn't need it.
I just don't understand why we couldn't fix the policy and wouldn't have to worry about that. But, it doesn't sound like there's agreement here, and so I will table this.
Mr. Patton, is the Robert Rules of Order not our safety net?
Well, I mean, sure. Robert's Rules of Order isn't policy though, and shouldn't be substituted for it. You know, and Robert's Rules of Order doesn't prescribe a method to create an executive committee without there being a chairman in place, or a vice chair who would take that chairman's place over. So that's my only thing.
Which that paragraph is about a chairman pro tem in Robert's Rules of Order, correct?
Right.
Correct.
I like what Mr. King said. So that the secretary would do that, and then if we had an issue, then we would have a meeting to address the issue.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna
So-
have an issue because both of our vice president and president are but we do have that issue because
Chairman and vice chair, but,
are rolling off the board.
but
It says if neither are present, the secretary calls a meeting, conducts an election for chairman pro tem for that meeting only.
That's what our existing policy says.
So we could meet if we needed to ahead of time, ahead of the board meeting, but if there's no need for it, then we would just do the policy says, and we go ahead and elect at the normal board meeting.
so we still would not have an executive committee without having a special called meeting.
Qualified to call a meeting in that circumstance.
Yes.
It says the secretary.
No,
No.
It would
the
be
board can call a meeting.
The board.
The
So
secretary.
you have to have a majority of the board to call for a meeting in that situation?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
policy 1.400.
Okay.
So still, there would still be a meeting and a
Only if necessary.
okay, so we're gonna move on to policy 1.501, visitors to the school. These are new laws that came down in TSBA recommendations. And does anyone have any questions on 1.501?
No, and just in regards to all of the TSBA recommended policies, I did go through and take a look at them in comparison, ours in comparison to what TSBA had sent out. Ms. Diane did a fantastic job getting everything in there word for word, line by line, because there is a lot from the recent legislation, so everything looked really good overall from what they sent.
Okay, so I make a motion, we send, I'm gonna go through all of them, and then we'll just make a motion to recommend to the full board. So policy 1.800, school calendar, it is asking if we need to insert additional language if schools will be closed for the general and/or primary elections, and we do not do that at this time, do we? I know Fentress County does, but they still use some of their schools for election precincts. So we wouldn't have to add anything into that because we don't close for elections.
No, we don't have any of our meeting places, right? They're all like churches and stuff.
And policy 2.403, surplus properties, TSBA recommendations, they took out some of the wording, changed it. I didn't see anything that stood out as concerning. Mr. Patton said he did not either, right?
Correct.
Does anyone have any questions on that one? And then policy 2.806. Same thing, TSBA recommendations. This is bids and quotations. This is just putting us in line with the laws that were handed down. Any questions on that one?
Yep.
3.202, emergency preparedness planning and training, same thing. They've added a paragraph, took out a couple of things, but it's just to put us in line with the law. Any questions on that? Policy 3.205, security, same thing. We do have on line 28, the following is the default. Mr. Stepp, did you have anything to change on line 28, or are we leaving it as they recommended? It says the following is the default if the district does not create alternate local procedures.
Yeah, we're working on that right now. We're doing all of our safety assessments and all that kind of stuff, so I have a better answer for you later. We can leave it like this for now.
Okay, and so when we come back to the full board, then
Yeah,
if you
we're
have,
actively working on that. There's a deadline of this Friday for principals to have all that stuff done, and Mr. Madison will be back, so we'll be able to talk through it with the sheriff and the chief to make sure.
okay, so we will, I'm gonna make a note that we will discuss this at the full board meeting. Because then you should have your information. Policy 3.400, student transportation management. This was one that, I've got some questions on this, and I would really, if no one minds, I would really like to have this tabled and have Mr. Patton to take a closer look at it, because of where they have added about the school bus drivers and that the board is in charge of the certificate. It needs a little more clarification to that, because there would be a lot to that, and if we had to have everybody that we hired come before the board to get that certificate.
It wouldn't work that way. It'd be like teacher certifications. It goes through the State Department. They say, yes, you're good. There's your certificates. We list the names on the board agenda, and y'all go, okay, that's good.
And I understand that, but the way it's worded, and so that's why I have asked Mr. Patton if he will take a closer look at it and give us some ideas of how we might word this just a little differently, but not mess with the law. So that one I would like to, Ms. Nichols, is it okay with you? I'd like to table 3.400 until Mr. Patton takes a closer look at it.
So you're looking for some more detailed wording to the fact of
Yeah,
what
and-
Mr. Stepp mentioned?
And Jennifer White had given a little bit of, but we need to figure out what kind of form we might like to have, like a standardized form, whatever, like the tenured teachers that Mr. Patton and I were talking about, something like that. But the way it's worded, it says,
The state provides those certificates. Same as a teacher's license, same as a TA's license, same as special education license.
and the way the policy used to read, it was State Board of Education, and now it reads that each school bus driver shall receive a certificate from the board prior to operating a school bus for the school district, which makes it sound like, and the issuance of the certificate to a school bus driver shall be based on the qualifications of school bus drivers as determined by the director of schools. But the way it's worded, it makes it sound like it's gonna have to come before the board.
I'll talk to Mr. Patton, we'll talk about it, but I'm assuming the board can adopt the state certification.
And that would,
That as
yeah.
the,
Thank you.
And if you come to a consensus before the regular board meeting, we can just add that back on and go ahead. I just would like a little clarification, because you don't want something worded and then it come back and bite you. 4.201, this is just recommendations also, class size ratios, and it's covering more for the CTE. So, does anyone have any questions on that one? Ms. Nichols, did you have any questions on that? Okay, 4.213, family life education. This was another recommendations, and they've added some things just to fit with the law. And on 4.215, it was listed as 4.214, but we already have that policy number. So Ms. Diane has fixed it to the 4.215. This is a brand new policy and it covers the artificial intelligence programs. And on line 6, it says district technology staff or insert a title of employee. Do we need to do anything with that?
Yeah, we'll probably put, or the director's designee,
Okay.
which would cover anybody in the county that works for the school system.
And there will be more coming down as time goes on. This is just the start of the AI.
Yeah, we've already done several trainings on this, on how to use it in the schools. We had one just today, actually. So,
On the page 2, line 6, it says insert any other local expectations. Do you have anything that needed to be
we're in
added?
developing that right now. We're in the middle of that. Like I said, we even had a training just today on local expectations.
Okay,
It'll be a process because there's some districts, very little, that are ready for this already, and then the rest of the state's not. So
okay, so that will be something else that you can
Yeah.
present it at the full board, or we can bring
if it's
this
ready
back
by
next
then.
month.
It might not be ready by then, but
Would you like this one tabled until next month?
yeah, probably.
Okay.
We got some work to do on it.
That way you can,
There's
with
way
it being
more to
brand
it.
new, yes.
Way more to it.
Yep. The
So,
processes are gonna be big on that one too. Yeah, that's gonna be a challenge.
We already
yes.
got a lot of it, but it's just not where it needs to be.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back over this for, policy 1.501, 1.800, 2.403, 2.806, 3.202, hold on a second.
You pulled out 3.205.
Yeah, I'm getting them together here. 4.201 and 4.213, I'm recommending that we send those to the full board. They had no questions, so those are actually ready to go to the full board for first and second reading. And then we are pulling out 3.205 is not actually being pulled out, but it will be discussed at the full board. Mr. Stepp is going to have the rest of the information that is needed. And 3.400 we have tabled. And if Mr. Patton and Mr. Stepp come to a consensus of what this actually means on the school bus drivers and the certificates, then it can be discussed at the full board. And we can go ahead and get that underway. And then we are tabling 4.215, the use of artificial intelligence, until the July policy meeting for Mr. Stepp to work on more to go with that. So does anyone have any questions about any of the policies? So I'm making a motion that all of those go before the full board, except for the ones that are tabled.
Can I second that motion?
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, so that will conclude the policy meeting. And I'm not sure if, I guess, Mr. King will move into the AAA minutes.
Sure, I'd be glad to. The only thing on there is the approval of the minutes. So I think we should approve them.
Yep, move to approve.
Second. So those minutes are approved.
Okay, I have a question. On the buildings and grounds and safety, you and I both are on that. Now, we could go ahead and approve the minutes on that, but we cannot discuss the soccer field fence because I am unlearned on what that was about. So therefore, since Mr. Shafty is not here, I don't feel comfortable bringing that up. But as far as the minutes, I will make a motion to go ahead and approve the buildings and grounds and safety minutes.
Motion to approve?
All in favor, say aye. So that's got all the minutes approved. I think I approved the policy minutes. Ms. Nichols, I make a motion to approve the
Yes.
policy minutes.
Second that.
Thank you.
Remember y'all doing it?
I don't remember either, so all in favor, say aye.
So, Ms. Hamby, what details would you like about the fence? I think I can help you out with that.
Well, I don't feel comfortable with it without Mr. Sackey being here since he is the chairman of the Building and Grounds
But this
Committee.
is a project that's being donated by a local oncologist that is splitting between the practice fields. So if we wait for another month and we wait for it to be done before soccer season starts.
Oh, we don't want to change his mind.
Okay, so it's being, all the money's being donated?
Yes, 9,800, whatever the attachment says.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Yeah.
Thank you. I had no knowledge, I had no idea until I saw it, and of course, I've been out of town, so I've not been able to ask
I'm
anybody.
always available to answer any questions.
Amen.
So,
Foster steps to wealth and knowledge.
thank you for that. So, okay, so that's got the whole agenda taken care of, so if no one has any more questions, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
I don't think she shows up.
That's